And welcome to another video with me, Charlie Lambden. This is Moving Home with Charlie. And in this video, I have got a video question very kindly sent in by a follower, a long-time follower from Devon. Now, I've always said, if you want to get your question answered for free, because I can't work for free, so I can't do it privately for free unless you're a member of the Q&A club or unless you book a private video call with me. If you want to get your question answered for free, send me a video clip. And you can send it to me by private message on either Instagram or X. And try to keep it under 60 seconds, max 90 seconds. And if you send me a clip that you don't mind, that doesn't need editing, and has a question that's valuable to other movers, I will do my best to answer it. I won't give away too much personal information. I won't share anything that isn't valuable to the movers. So please send in your video questions because it's much more fun doing it this way. So this evening, we have a follower called Rich from East Devon who's got worries. Well, let's watch this video and find out what he's got to say.
Hi Charlie, a long time subscriber here, and I'm currently in a bit of a quandary. I put my house on the market early in 22, around the same time that I came across your channel. Your observations about the market hitting its peak and your prediction of a 35% drop in house prices really resonated with me, especially since I bought my first place in 91 and ended up in negative equity. I take your advice to heart about buying a home but not overpaying, but my area has proven resilient to price drops so far, and given your conversations with Alex about the state of the economy and the housing market, I'm feeling quite undecided about what's the best move to make. I've had an offer accepted on a property, but I'm understandably concerned for several reasons which you know about. The main worry is about future-proofing my financial position. And if house prices were to drop even by 10%, that would make a massive difference to my financial stability, and even in the event of a job loss, I'd still afford the mortgage. So here's my dilemma. With interest rates currently boosting my income, should I hold off, keep saving and hope prices slide further this year and look to buy next? Or should I go ahead and proceed with the purchase, and if prices do fall in the meantime, consider renegotiating or pulling out altogether? I know it cost me in conveyancing fees, but a 10% price drop would save me far more than I'd lose, and I'd feel far more secure knowing I'd avoided taking on a larger mortgage than I could have if I'd waited that little bit longer. I'm not a first-time buyer, and I don't have years ahead of me to recover from a poor decision, so it's crucial that I make the right choice in light of the current uncertainty. And I'd really appreciate any thoughts.
So that is quite a common question. Thank you very much, Rich, for sending that in. And again, if any of you want to send your video questions in for me to answer like this, send them to you on Instagram or X. Just search Moving Home with Charlie on one of those two channels. But let's get back to Rich's question. Now, the short answer is this. So Rich has had an offer accepted on a house in an area he wants to live with a mortgage and at a price, presumably, that he can afford. His concern is prices falling after he's bought. And he's asking what to do. Pull out, wait for prices to come down and buy later, or renegotiate, or proceed as planned. Now, the first thing to acknowledge here is that this is a suboptimal situation for the seller of this property, because when you accept an offer on a property, you don't really want your buyer having second thoughts. And my first thing would be try to be sure before you make an offer on a property that you really do want it. Now, having said that, this is a very, very common scenario where you've been looking for a house for so long, you've been saving for so long, you've been dreaming of owning a home for so long, that all you can think about is having an offer accepted on a home you want. And often it's difficult to think beyond that step. But suddenly, and I haven't said this for a long time, but I've said it on a lot of videos previously. When you have an offer accepted on a home, normally you'll get one of two feelings. Either you'll get kind of nervous excitement where it's like, oh my God, this is it, we're buying, we're doing it. And you're nervous because it's daunting, but you're still excited at the prospect, like pre-race nerves, good nerves. Or you won't get that. And you either get nothing or you get a bit of a sinking feeling like, oh. And the first thing I would say to anyone is listen to your gut feeling. Never proceed against your gut feeling, especially if you're buying as a couple and you think, I want to go ahead with this because the other half wants it. If your gut says no, Never ignore your gut feeling. Okay, now, in a nutshell, Rich, the answer to the question is, and this is a technique that I use whenever I've got a dilemma and I cannot decide what to do, to go ahead or not to go ahead, to buy or not to buy. And this technique always helps me figure this out. And it's this: which one of the two choices would be the worst mistake if it went bad? So, in other words, what would be worse? Buying and then wishing you hadn't because prices fall in this scenario, or not buying and wishing you had because later on you can't buy. Now, I can't answer that for you. Only you can answer that question, but that's the way to approach this. If I bought and regretted it because prices fell, would that be worse? Or would not buying and then wishing I had when I could have be worse? Now, I don't know, because I don't have all the details of your personal circumstances, but let's just walk through those two scenarios. So if you are currently in a position to proceed and buy a home and you've got a mortgage ready to go ahead and you can go ahead and secure a home that might well be your forever home, is there a guarantee that that will still be the case in, let's say, a year from now? Or never mind your circumstances, might the world change? Might circumstances change? Might things change? Might there be a financial crisis and suddenly mortgage borrowing isn't available? Or who knows, right? All these uncertainties. Might you find yourself suddenly in a position where, oh God, I can't get a mortgage. Now I can't buy a home. And I wish I bought a home last year when I had that offer accepted on that property. I wish I'd bought that and just knuckled down and dealt with whatever happened after that. Try and imagine that scenario. Okay, imagine you're waiting and waiting, and maybe prices do come down, but maybe for whatever reason you can't buy because you can't get a mortgage because something's happened outside your control. You can't get a mortgage. Would you wish you'd bought now, or would you be relieved that you hadn't if prices come down? Alternatively, in the scenario you mentioned where you do buy, and I get it because you said in the video you bought in the 90s and then found yourself in negative equity, and that's a horrible place to be. If you buy and prices do come down, I think you said you will still be able to afford the mortgage. If you're not planning on selling it for a long time, you're planning on living there for a long time, I don't think your exposure is too great. I mean, I don't know how big your deposit is. You didn't tell me on the mortgage, so I don't know how sharp your risk of negative equity actually might be. But if you're confident you can pay the mortgage, and you mentioned about potentially in one of your messages taking on a lodger as well, that you'd be willing to do. If you're confident about paying the mortgage no matter what happens, in the situation you describe, I would probably lean towards, if it was me, I'm not you, but if it was me, I would probably lean towards buying as being the lesser of two mistakes if it turned out to be a mistake, right? So I would lean towards buying and accepting the risk of house prices falling 10% because I've got my mortgage, it's locked in, it's fixed in, and I've got a home and I'm secure. Now, that brings us on to the next question, which is, okay, if you do that, should you proceed at the price you've agreed, or should you negotiate and renegotiate? Now, I have put links in the description below this video on YouTube to several videos I've done in the past about how to renegotiate and how to price when you are renegotiating. And I recommend anyone in this situation goes and checks out those videos. But in a nutshell, remember that even starting renegotiation can lead to the seller pulling out of selling to you and switching to another buyer. That can happen. Sometimes it happens for irrational reasons, but it can happen, so be aware. Do not begin a renegotiation unless you are certain that you're reducing your price or walking away, right? If you would kick yourself if the seller pulled out and didn't sell it to you, sold to someone else, you've got to think very hard about starting the renegotiation. But if you're certain that you want to pay a lower price for whatever your reasons are, and you're willing to say, I'm really sorry, I still want the property, but this is my new price, and I understand you may not want to accept it, and that's fine. If you don't want to accept it, I'm going to back out of the transaction. But if you do accept it, I'd like to proceed at this price. Now, this is horrible for sellers, of course. But if you feel you are overpaying for whatever your circumstances might be, that's the way to approach your renegotiation. And how to work out the price, again, I've put a link to that video below, but basically it's what is the maximum it's worth to you in the circumstances you're describing. So now, one of the questions you're asking is about what's going to happen to house prices. I have no certainty. There are so many unknown variables that are coming along. And I don't think you gave me the actual. Yes, you did. The house. Yeah, so you are in first time buyer territory with a house at that price. And at the first time buyer level, there's always more demand than at other levels of the market. And the only time that changes seriously and dramatically is if there is a credit crunch and first-time buyers can no longer get mortgages for whatever reason. And if that were to happen, then first-time buyer prices would fall further. There's less chance of that happening now than in 2008, but it's not impossible. That's just an opinion of mine. And I also think that because you're buying at the first-time buyer level of the market, you are also less exposed to big price falls. Like there have been 50% price falls in some areas at the higher end of the market, at the sort of detached house end of the market. There have already been, in real terms, 50% falls, 30% falls in nominal terms. And this is confirmed land registry data in some places. So, Rich, thank you very much for your question. And again, if anyone else is watching wants to send their questions in, you can send them to me by video or audio. Happy with audio. If you don't want to be on camera, you want to be on audio as well. Send me your questions by audio message on Instagram or X. I get too many questions by private message. I just do not have the time and cannot answer those for free. You need to be a member of the Private Movers Q&A Club, where I guarantee to answer your private messages privately, unless you tell me it's okay to share them publicly. And actually, that reminds me. This was a public question I got from someone, which I will add into this video. No, actually, change my mind. Not going to do it. Guys, thank you very much. Any questions on that video? If not, have a great evening. Sorry, weird days of the week for videos this week because it was a bank holiday Monday yesterday, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do a video tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, so I thought I'd do one tonight. Just a quick one. I hope that's helpful. Please share this video with anyone you think it might help. Rich, I hope that's answered your question, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.